All advice given is for general information purposes. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Good Saturday afternoon. Carl Rominger here, coming live from the WHP 580 studios. 540-0580. Call in with your legal questions. Of course, none of you showed up to watch that trial I won this week, but that's okay. Yes, we did win it. Oh, thank you. And we also got 7 pounds of marijuana thrown out of court because the police unconstitutionally, or in violation of the Constitution, detained my client on the side of the road and then got his, quote, consent to search after about 45 minutes. And after they consented for the search, of course, they retrieved 7 pounds of marijuana. Problem is they didn't have any reasonable suspicion to detain him and wouldn't let him leave, and therefore his consent was not obtained in a constitutional way, and therefore the 7 pounds of marijuana are out of court, so essentially he walks free. And some people go, it's terrible. Well, first of all, we have to vindicate the Constitution, and every once in a while that means a criminal goes free. But if the police would just do their job the right way, we wouldn't have had that problem at all. Larry.
Hello?
Hey, Larry, what's going on?
I'm fine. I don't know if this is an appropriate question for you, but I was thinking about buying a house at an auction.
Okay.
And I was wondering what kind of pitfalls I could, possibly run into.
Well, Larry, I can actually answer this just a little bit, but I'll give you the things I really can't help you with. But the idea of, like, for instance, buying the house at an auction, a lot of times you're buying it, quote, as is, meaning you're going to take it with all the foibles and problems it might have, and that's where, I wouldn't have the eye to walk through a place and spot all the potential problems. Some other buyers, depending on their level of sophistication in fixing a house, might not even care. Some people go in knowing that they have the capability to put down their own carpet, replace drywall, and redo wiring if they had to, and so they can kind of self-insure in that respect. The biggest thing that I've seen in auction cases, because I actually had this happen a few times over the years, I've had a client go to auction and discover that they've purchased a house, but they put the cart before the horse because they hadn't quite figured out how they were going to pay for it. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you need to make sure you don't bid more than you can afford, and a lot of times that has to do with what a bank's willing to loan you. So if you have cash and you're going to buy it with cash, it doesn't matter. But if you're planning on getting financing, you need to know ahead of time. And if the house doesn't appraise out for the right amount, the bank might not loan you the money you want on it anyhow. And so my buyer had the very bad position of having put down 10% on a $370,000 home that they bought at auction, and then discovered that the bank said it was only worth, $290 or $295. Now, the fact that there was 10 people bidding it up didn't seem to matter to the appraisers. And how do you get a loan at that point, right?
Right. I'm mainly concerned about liens that would be on the home. How would you find out whether there are any liens on the home?
You would usually, if you're a buyer and you're going to buy a house at a regular closing through a regular, say, sales agreement, have in the sales agreement a requirement that the seller deliver good and clear title. And so you would have a contract out there where if the title wasn't good, after a title search is done. So usually, and this is where it gets expensive, title search is going to cost you anywhere from $100 to $150, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but that's the usual range these days. And a title search is where you would have an abstractor go through and tell you if there's anything on the title. And then, of course, usually it's good to have an attorney look over the abstract to tell you what it means. So sophisticated auction buyers, like I have clients that go to what you would call tax sales, for instance, and they will go in and they will do title searches on the 20 properties that are going to be up, so they know ahead of time what's going on. But that's a big investment, and they might not buy anything.
Right. Okay, then. Well, thank you for the information.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Larry, the only other thing you can do is if you check the terms of the auction, some auctions have terms where they're going to agree to give you good title, and then you would have an out if they couldn't.
Right. Well, this particular one shows no liens, but then they issue a special warranty deed
Right.
It just covers the current owner.
Right, absolutely. And when you say it shows no liens, I mean somebody's actually done a title search, or the seller auctioneer saying there's no liens.
I don't know that somebody's done a title search.
Right. And that's the problem. I mean, you go back, as soon as you get a special warranty deed, and you go back a few years and you discover that it was part of an estate, and then you discover the estate wasn't administrated, and and then there's a cloud on your title.
Right.
All right, my friend, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, buying properties at auction, buying tax sale properties, things like that, people don't realize all the pitfalls that go into that. And the people that buy those houses usually have either, A, done all their research, or Eric David in my office had some experience before with a client who actually didn't care. They would just buy what they wanted and deal with the problems, the bumps and the warts later. And in order to do that, you have to be prepared to take an occasional bath. And for most of us, if we've got $100,000 tied up in a piece of property, we're not going to want to just walk away from it. And if you want to just walk away from it and you've actually gotten into the chain of title, you got to be really careful because of environmental issues and things like that. So then you have to do some really sophisticated entity setups ahead of time to make sure that you don't take title to it. You know, some LLC owned by some LLC, which is part of some other LLC, can take title to it and keep you, 3 or 4 steps away if everything goes right, so you don't accidentally become the owner of a big mess. 540-0580. Call and we'll talk. I can answer your legal questions here on the air. We'll be up live on the air until 3 o'clock. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, don't forget to go to weekendappointment.com where you can sign up, get a free will. I think I correctly predicted this when I said that the union bill out there in Wisconsin was going to be subject to a legal challenge. And somebody said, it's a done deal, it's a done deal. And I thought it was weird that they were able to convene the bill literally out of committee so quickly and get the whole thing set up. And I don't know Wisconsin's legislative rules. I don't know them. I haven't studied them. It just seemed to me that it takes a little more than what happened out there in most instances for legislation to be passed. Now, they say they got a ruling from somebody in the House and that it was going to be okay. But this was my thought on the matter was it was probably going to be subject to judicial review, and whether or not it will be allowed to go forward or not is going to be the open question. I heard Rush talking about it yesterday, and he made some good points about how suspending it at this point doesn't make sense because of the presumption of legislative constitutionality and correctness. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with it, but keep your eye on it. It's going to be a big political football out there, and obviously if the judiciary strikes it down, there's going to be a lot of upset Republicans. Just like if the U.S. Supreme Court strikes down the health care law, there's going to be a lot of upset Democrats. Just, both sides. 540-0580. I want to get back from the break. I'll talk to Cheryl.
80.
Hey, welcome back. I was just answering a question on weekend appointment during the break here. A guy posted a question. I don't want to specify the country, but my family applied for a permanent travel visa 2 months ago and have not received the visas. Do we have legal standing against an embassy? We had to go through a lot of paperwork and paid a hefty fee, and these foreigners in the embassy don't even respond to your emails, nor do they have a direct phone contact number. Well, the short answer is, and I think some people probably already guessing, diplomatic immunity. You can't sue the embassy and you can't sue the foreigners. That embassy is foreign soil. It doesn't belong to the United States. It's not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, nor are the people who work there, even when they're running around getting DUIs and running people over, unless their home country waives diplomatic immunity. That doesn't mean they're not subject to the laws of their own country, and so if there was some compulsory process you could force in whatever country it is you're talking about, you might have a remedy. That said, visas kind of, like, can I please come and stay in your country? And there's no requirement they say yes. And I'm sure somewhere in the fine print when you filled all that paperwork out, it didn't guarantee you would be permitted entry. So my suspicion is, no, you have no remedy. Of course, I just posted that on weekendappointment.com. And I know there's been some good questions up there this week. We had one about employment, employers, and separation from employment that Eric David answered that has a very nice comprehensive answer. We posted a special, can the police search my car roadside? It kind of tells you under what circumstances the police can search your car roadside and what rights you have. And a really popular post that's up on the front right now is, are my Facebook postings private? And we talk about the laws that applies to privacy and your Facebook posts. 540-0580 to talk to me here on the air. Cheryl.
Hi, Carl. I'm calling for a friend only because she's too timid to talk over the radio.
Okay.
She's 72.
Okay.
Her ex-husband is 83.
Okay.
And he's in a nursing home. And he has no assets to speak of.
Okay.
A car. An old car, like an 84 Chevy Citation or something. And he left it at her house.
Okay.
And he was found wandering at PennDOT. He was kind of didn't know where he was or whatever, a little bit of dementia or Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And she was wondering what she can do with this car.
Well, the short answer is whoever's handling his affairs, I mean, they're no longer husband and wife anymore.
That's correct.
So whoever is handling his legal affairs certainly could take the car and dispose of it.
Who would that be?
Well, has anybody
no one around here. He's originally from Missouri.
Right.
And I guess he settled here when they married. And, I mean, he has nobody around here. We've been looking after him at the nursing home, and she is listed as his contact person for the nursing home, and I am listed as a contact person for the nursing home.
And does she or anybody have a power of attorney for him?
No. I mean, how would you get such a thing?
Well, if he's competent, okay, assuming for a moment he's competent, he could sign a power of attorney. Assuming that he's incompetent, you'd have to go with a guardianship action. And that's something where a lawyer like myself files a petition and we get a doctor to sign off on it, and then the judge holds a little hearing and determines if he's competent to handle his own affairs. If he isn't, they appoint you as his guardian, and then you have the power to handle those things. Now, practically, the only other thing you could do with the vehicle would be to have the police tag it. Basically, the police would tag it saying it's parked illegally or the owner hasn't claimed it. And then a salvage professional can pick it up. They can process it. And then if he doesn't claim it, they'll eventually get a salvage title for it and the vehicle will disappear. Of course, probably not worth enough money to justify, spending $1,000 in legal fees trying to get rid of it.
No, it's not.
So my thought would be try your local police, explain the situation, and see if they'd be willing to fill out a PennDOT form on it that basically says, hey, this guy left his car parked here. He's not capable of retrieving it. We want you guys to fill out the form so that the salvage guy can take it.
Okay. But other than that, if the nursing home can get him to sign for like a power of attorney,
then she could dispose of the car.
Yeah.
Of course, she has to, make sure the assets go to his benefit.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate your help.
Yeah, and Cheryl, these are the typical problems we see where you have a small asset like this and you have somebody who didn't do what they should have done, which is get powers of attorneys and things like that in place before their health deteriorated. And
well, he's very belligerent, and he thinks he's fine. And, for 5 minutes out of the hour, he might be. Well,
somebody said to me the other day, I'm not crazy, and I said, that's what all crazy people say.
That's correct. Yeah, he's just a poor soul.
Understand. Well, it's good that somebody's looking after him.
Well, as much as we can.
Understand.
We visit him and take him things, but he as soon as we walk in the door, he thinks we're there to take him home.
Right.
And then he gets real belligerent when he sees that we're not.
Right. Well, and that's, it breaks your heart, but the answer is it's better you go see him and deal with that than not. And what can you do? But I understand. I've been there. I had my grandmother calling me, to come pick her up in Florida and take her back. Yeah. And I'm like, Grandma, that's probably not going to happen. But then she, it was a long discussion that we had repeatedly.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm going to have to try to see if I can get. Would the nursing home be?
They might be able to help you with the power of attorney. Absolutely. His competency comes into play, and as long as they think he's competent, they'll let you do that. If they don't think, the doctor doesn't think he's competent, then the guardianship would be the way to go. And if that's the case, then I would definitely just try the police and get the salvage guy to come and tow it.
And guardianship, would that be handled through your office?
We could absolutely help that. We do those. We've done those for many people in his situation, and also young people who've been, paralyzed or put in a coma and otherwise can't do things, and initiate a power of attorney, etc. So, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess the first point of entry is going to be the nursing home, and see
Yes.
if they can get him to sign a power of attorney.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Carl.
All right.
I really appreciate listening to you every Saturday.
Well, thank you very much.
It's a wonderfully informative show.
We try.
Yep, you do.
All right.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
540-0580, calling with your legal questions. Joy, you're on the air.
Yes, Carl. I don't know if this is the type of question you would answer, but you brought up Wisconsin. And I have had a question about that ever since I've heard him talking about it, and I really would like to,
Go ahead.
get your opinion about it. Those legislators that left town and went away, Carl, how can that possibly be legal? So, what I was thinking of is, if they can do it, then it seems to me any government entity could do it. And how could you run a country or a state or anything if, when they don't agree, with what they have to do, they can just leave? I mean, what if the United States congressman did that?
Well, but and this is my take on the whole thing. First of all, it's unique because it just so happens that there's enough of one party that if they all disappear, there's no quorum. Okay,
right? I understand.
So
that.
if one Democrat got voted out, the Republicans would have quorum and wouldn't even need him there. So they wouldn't be able to duplicate that. But here's the thing: it all depends on how you want to look at it. We all think, for instance, if one of the senators had taken, I say we all think, I'm maybe speaking for you, putting words in your mouth, but we all think that if one of the senators had taken the floor and filibustered the health care bill, right?
Right.
We'd all think that was the greatest thing in the history of the world. We'd be like, wow, he filibustered. He's a hero.
Right, you're allowed to filibuster.
Well, but a filibuster, you say you're allowed to. Your filibuster is really wasting everybody's time. You stand up and talk 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 until you read the dictionary out loud, as one of the guys did. I think Strom Thurmond or Bird or somebody back in the day just started reading dictionary definitions. Right. But the point is, you're wasting thousands of people, because there's thousands of people sitting around waiting for you to finish talking.
Right.
You're wasting millions of dollars of the government's money on a filibuster. But we think a filibuster is okay for some reason, okay? Whereas what the Democrats did was just deny quorum. And where in their job description does it say that they're not allowed to do that? I mean, what
if they had decided to just stay out for a year?
Well, I understand, and then
is there no time limit?
Well, there's no requirement. That's right, but there is something called an election that will come around again. And so here's the question: how do you measure whether government's doing what you want it to do or not? If you measure it that they've passed a lot of laws, and the more laws they pass, the more work they're doing, then usually we would call you a Democrat. And if you measure good government by how little they've done, most of us would say you're a libertarian or maybe a Republican in the traditional conservative sense, and you want the government to do very little. And so what do you want from government? Do you want them to be very busy passing lots of laws, or only doing what's minimally necessary? And so those of us who would say we like a minimally necessary government, to be intellectually consistent, I have to say would like a government that doesn't do anything or does less. And so that's kind of how I look at it. Like, it just depends what you think. And I think on that one, if they were going to pass a bill in Wisconsin that Republicans didn't like, and some Republicans fled the state, it would just be completely the opposite. The Republicans would think that their guys were heroes, and the Democrats would think
no, I'm a Republican, but I would not think they're heroes. No way. I could just not understand how you can just,
Well, what's the job description? Tell me what the job description is for somebody in the Wisconsin legislature or the U.S. Senate.
To pass laws, to be there to vote on laws.
So you want more laws?
No, but I don't want them just to leave the state to do it. I just can't see.
Well, what they did, they wanted to. They were elected by their constituents to do something. Okay.
Right. Well, why couldn't they just stay there?
Well, wait. I'm trying to ask this question. Let's assume that 82% of their constituents are happy with them for what they did. Okay.
Yeah.
If that's the case, did they do their job? Did they represent their constituents' desire?
But
No. Just answer that question first.
It just seems to me that you can't run things that way.
I mean, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
If any majority who doesn't like what the majority,
they're in the minority.
They can deny a quorum. They can just leave for a year.
But let me ask you a question, Joy.
Yeah.
If you're all about getting it done, then how come the president can veto the Senate and the House of Representatives, and how come they can override him? I mean, why even have that? Why have that? Why have courts strike down laws? Why have three branches of government? Why have to have a House and a Senate both pass the same thing? Why not just get it done? If we had less checks and balances, things would move a lot faster.
People that voted for them to come in and they won the election.
No, wait a minute. What did they vote for them to do? And that's what I'm trying to ask you: is did they vote for them to represent the voters' will?
Well, yeah, I think they did.
Okay. And so if that's the measure, and here's the thing, at the end of the day, listen, if I work in a factory and I screw the tubes on toothpaste, right, my boss at the end of the day is going to say, Carl, how many tubes did you screw on the end of the toothpaste today? And if I say 3, he's going to fire me. If I say 10,000, he's going to promote me, and maybe I'll get to, fill the toothpaste tubes with toothpaste or something. I don't know. But my point is, that's the measure of my success in that job. In politics, it's not like you have it's not like there's a thing that says you must vote this many times, you must attend all votes, you must show up here or there or anything. You just have to, quote, represent your constituents. And if your constituents decide that the best form of representation you can give under the circumstances is not to show up at all, then they'll vote you back in. If they think you're lazy and no good.
Carl, I'm sorry, that makes no sense to me. So, like when they were debating the health care bill, why didn't those Republicans, instead of just doing a filibuster, why didn't they just leave Washington?
They would, but they wouldn't have denied the Democrats quorum because of the way it was set up right now.
But if they could have done it, then that would have been okay. They could have just left Washington.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing.
And stayed away for a whole year, and nothing. You couldn't have done anything for a whole year.
That's right. That's right.
That's something. I mean, there should be some rules about that, Carl. I mean, that is just
because you want the bill passed. Or you don't want the bill passed.
It's just that
Joy,
how can you run a government by people just not, if they had shown up to vote and voted no or even filibustered, fine.
But why is a filibuster okay, Joy?
Because they were there working.
When Senator Byrd, now wait a minute, Joy. When a senator stands there and reads out of a dictionary for a day straight, you think you're paying him to do a job?
Yeah, he's at least there doing something.
He's doing what? He's wasting. Multiply 1,000 people's salary by 24 hours.
Not in some motel sitting around doing nothing.
Joy, he's wasting more people's time. At least there's not people sitting around listening to him. We have to pay. Do you realize that every time a senator talks, it has to be written down transcribed by a few different court reporters or transcriptionists? We pay them.
Carl, it just makes no sense.
So, Joy, is that okay?
It just seems to me if they can do that in this circumstance, then we may as well not have any government at all. I mean, if you can just leave the state.
See, Joy, this is the problem. I guarantee you, I'll do some research and I'll find you a few examples where conservatives have used similar techniques to deny the other side, and I guarantee you we'll find out that most people on the conservative side were in favor of that, and vice versa. And I know right now you're staking out this position, but I guarantee you would have held a party.
No,
you would have held a party to celebrate anybody who denied health care this way.
No, you don't know me. I would never say that.
So,
okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Never.
Are the people of Wisconsin entitled to decide how they want to rule themselves as a state?
Well, sure they are.
Okay, then if the people of Wisconsin are fine with what happened and they vote these guys back in, then it doesn't matter, does it? Because they're allowed to decide how to run their own state.
But they won't even have a chance to the people that voted for the Republicans to do something about their budget. Those are the people that are getting screwed. I mean, they wouldn't even have a chance to get the bill passed.
Well, first of all, they did get the bill passed, and
right.
second of all, let's look at it this way. Shouldn't the people of Wisconsin took a little more interest in their government a few years ago and maybe said we don't like this quorum rule the way it's currently written?
Well, probably didn't even know about a quorum
Well,
rule.
then you go. Ignorance is not an excuse.
I wouldn't. I mean, because I was just flabbergasted. I thought, well, they just can't.
But they can. What's the job description? Hey, let me tell you something. I have a friend. Okay, he works for the railroad. Do you know what his job description is?
What?
To do nothing. Do you know why?
Because he's been in a union.
Well, no. His job is that if somebody else calls off, okay, he has to be on call so he can fill in for them.
Well, that's good. Whoever the boss was that allows that is nuts. It must be a union. It's got to be.
See, anti-union, Joy. How about
no,
this?
I'm not anti-union. I'm anti-union getting getting
he has to be available because
the private people do.
Let me ask you a question. It's like air traffic controllers, okay? If the air traffic controller falls ill, there has to be somebody available to replace him, right?
Yeah, someone on call. Yeah.
There you go. They're on call. So if you're on call, let me ask you a question, Joy. What are you able to do? Can you get out in a boat and go fishing?
No, you have to be able to get back to a certain place within a certain period of time.
Therefore, your time is not your own, and therefore you're compensated for it. I don't think that's unfair. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot of jobs out there where your job is basically just to be ready. All right. Anyhow, I got to go to break. I do respect your viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I guess it's legal.
It's all legal. Listen. They only answer to the people. Elected people answer to the people. And as long as they're doing what the people are happy with, they'll be voted back in. If they've done something horrible, terrible, or wrong, they won't be voted back in, and that's the measure.
But the ones that the people did vote to do something, they couldn't do anything. Their hands were tied because these people wouldn't come back.
Guess what? Everybody's entitled to be represented by who they want. So are you saying that when Scott Brown was elected from Massachusetts and he changed Kennedy's vote on that original health care issue, that he tied the hands of everybody else who voted people in to pass health care? And the answer is yes.
But he voted, Carl. These people did not vote. They didn't do anything.
But they don't have to vote. Where in their constitutions they say they have to vote?
I thought that's why they were there to vote.
No, they're there to represent. There's a difference. Remember that.
In order to represent someone, you have to either vote yes or no.
No,
okay,
wait a minute. What state are you in? Not every state requires a yes or no vote. And again, they weren't required to vote if they're not there. All right, 540-0580. I'll see you guys after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. I would try to beat up on Joy, but I just get so upset that people think that there's some requirement that the government pass more legislation or that they vote on things. Well, how much government do you want? I mean, for once, the Democrats were trying not to pass a bill. I mean, what more could you ask for, right? But the irony is there. 540-0580. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I was looking up the average frost dates, and it looks like May 4th is the average spring frost date, so we can't plant any plants left. It was really warm yesterday, so I went out in my garden and tossed some soil around and mixed it up a little bit and was thinking, what a great weather it's going to be, and maybe I can plant some plants pretty soon. I thought, I better check these frost dates. And then when I was looking at it, I saw that Ridgeway, and I don't know if anybody knows where Ridgeway is in Elk County, June 7th is their average last frost date. And their average first frost date as compared to us being around October 4th is September 13th. So imagine that. That's about a 3-month and a few day growing season if the frost comes on the average time. So maybe you get 4 months up there. Not going to get a lot of tomatoes off those plants. 540-0580. Dave, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Up in Canada fishing last year, the first week in June, and we had about 6 feet of ice from the bank out into the lake. So forget planning up there.
Wow.
Question, too, for you. I've had some problems, health problems, and in the past 4 or 5 months, I spent a lot of time at home.
Uh-huh.
And what do? I watch television. And the first industry that leads the pack in commercials is the personal injury attorneys. I'm sure you know that.
Correct.
The second industry is the insurance industry. With that little green worm or whatever it is, lizard.
Yeah, the gecko and the...
Yeah. I think it's a great commercial.
The world's greatest spokesman in the world for State Farm, or not State Farm, who is that? Nationwide.
Oh, yeah. But that leads me to try to make a telephone call, just for the heck of it, to my insurance broker.
Uh-huh.
Or to another insurance broker. And what do you think the first question he asked me was?
Who are you insured with?
Who am I currently buying from? I said, well, what business is that of yours? Well, that's my company policy. You don't tell me, I can't quote you. I said, see ya. So I did some more investigation.
Yeah.
And do you know what I smell here? I smell a violation of Wright Patman or Patman Robinson. And then I did some more investigating to find out that there are two industries in this country, in our country, who appear to be free from antitrust litigation. Number one,
baseball.
That's number one.
And now you're going to tell me insurance.
Number two is the insurance industry.
Yeah, well, that's for instance why they don't compete across state lines. They get certain exemptions, and they're allowed to do certain things. They're restrained in other areas. But like healthcare, for instance, you can't compete across state lines on a particular line of policies or people. They've got all kinds of special regulations, and I'll give you another example that I know of. There's something called the Private Detective Act in Pennsylvania, and if you want to go out and be an investigator or otherwise do certain things, you have to, get approved and have experience, and we have to do a background check on you and make sure you're the kind of individual we want to give these special powers to. Unless you're an insurance investigator, then you just get the special powers because the insurance company hired you.
Well, I thoroughly am convinced if some high-up Republican in Congress had the guts to say on the floor, let's start investigating the insurance industry,
right?
And Obamacare would die a sudden death.
Well, the short answer is you're onto something. The insurance companies have more money than the banks, and therefore they probably have more power than the banks. And I'm sure they don't really want to be dug into. But, of course, the interesting question will be who wants to tackle them?
Somebody like you who knows law, but is just a poor lawyer. You know how rich you could be if you could break that one open?
Yeah, or dead. I don't know. But my point being is, all seriousness, a lot of what goes on, I mean, it's known, it's just not talked about, and or people just don't seem to care. But you're absolutely right. I mean, why do they want to know who quotes, who you're with already? Because that's going to depend on how they quote you.
Exactly right.
And
exactly right.
And that is, as you say, potentially a price-fixing issue.
Yes, it is.
I mean, lawyers for years used to hand out, they can't do it anymore, and this is before my time, but the old lawyers tell me, when you started practice, say, in Cumberland County or Dauphin County, one of the first things that would happen is somebody would hand you a little list, and these are this is what you charge for a letter, this is what you charge for a will, and this is what you charge by the hour. And and that was how it was done, because you weren't allowed to start charging anything less, or you might find that you were no longer a good standing in the bar.
Well, the other way goes is, most people think trade associations are. What are trade associations for?
Oh, trade associations are because they're the only way to legitimately get around the antitrust regulations.
And for 50 competitors to sit at a bar and fix prices, for God's sake. We all know that. Anybody in the industry knows that. But nobody will do anything about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the trade associations also have the ability to do the joint studies and share information. And so in order to gather data on their industry, they have to gather a lot of sensitive data on all their members and then package it and then feed it back to their members, and that's legitimate as well. So, yeah, there's a whole sideline out there. And of course, guys like me, lawyers, spend a lot of time helping these guys figure out what they can and can't do lawfully, so that they can get as close to the line as possible without going over. Now, if they're going to go over at the bar over 3 scotches, I mean, sometimes those things land people in jail, but for the most part, you're right, they get away with it. All right, Dave.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
All right, if you get sick again, and I don't know what conspiracy you're going to route out that time, but I hope you get better.
I'll figure something out.
All right, talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
540-0580. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, answering your legal questions on this fine Saturday afternoon. 540-0580. Call in if you've got one. I'm going to be looking at an issue involving Megan's Law. I had a client tell me that they went from the 10-year registration suddenly to a lifetime registration, and doing a little poking around and learning that the state police have decided that even though some people were told they were on a 10-year registration, they're going to end up on a lifetime registration because that's just what the state police are going to do. And I know you probably don't have a lot of sympathy for those folks and things like that. Shane's shaking his head no. But I do have a little sympathy because, A, I'm paid to, So maybe I get a lot of sympathy if I'm paid. But B, and more seriously, I also think, though, that if you were in court and a judge told you something like, sir, this is what it's going to be, or this is the law, or this is what's going to happen to you, and this is your consequences, you should be able to kind of rely on the judge, I would think. I mean, just call me crazy, but I thought that when you're standing around in court, by the way, talk line number is 540-0580, and a judge tells you, excuse me there, drink a little Rockstar, make me feel better. If a judge tells you, this is the way it's going to be, this is what's going to happen to you, and this is when you'll be done, shouldn't you be able to rely on that? And I think that's the starting point that we should all begin with. Now, are there going to be times the judge is wrong? Yeah. But I can tell you that some other people in the criminal justice system appear to be as surprised as I was that they're doing this on their own. And I think I understand it because under the Megan's Law, if you're convicted more than once of a offense that requires a 10-year registration, then you become a lifetime registrant. The problem is, what is a conviction? And I can tell you that that's not simple because we've had cases in the law where if you have 3 drug offenses, the courts have said that even though all 3 drug offenses happen at the same time and you were convicted of them all at the same time, they're separate convictions. We have other areas of the law where we say even though you're charged with 3 at the same time, they're all one conviction or they all count as one, not a second. So go figure. 540-0580. Gwen, you're on with Carl Rominger.
Hello?
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. I have a question.
Yes.
You were talking about auctions previously. Yeah. When you go to an estate auction and you have 2 executors, are they required to sign the sales agreement and the conditions of sale?
Well, the short answer is at auction, they should sign. The 2 executors should probably both sign. Whether one has the power to commit the estate without the other, I don't know. I would, as the buyer, want them both to sign just to be safe, make sure everybody's unanimous. But it would seem to me that if there's an auction and I bid at the auction, there's an enforceable contract because an auction is a contract. In other words, if I'm at the auction, I bid on something, including real property, the actual act of bidding and being the highest bidder creates a binding contract all by itself with the estate. So I would assume I could compel them ultimately to sign off. Does that make sense?
Yes. I just wanted to see what your feelings were on that because we've been in a 10-year battle over my husband's estate. And they deliberately left his name off of that condition of sale. And in that condition of sale, it stated that the estate would turn the property over to the buyer free and clear of the liens and encumbrances,
right,
with the exception of the present occupancy, which was the executrix that lived in Mom's house most of her life.
Gotcha.
And my husband even went to court to bid on the property, and the judge said that was okay, that his name wasn't on it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes, it's been a 10-year battle.
Interesting. All right, well, that's my thought on the matter. My thought is if there's actually an auction, then the auction creates a binding contract. And I'm not sure if that's completely what your question was about, but I understand what you're saying. I'd have to know all the facts to really give you a better answer.
Well, I was just wondering if it was a legal sale without his name on it, and there was no paperwork. I mean, even the judge, there was a court order saying that my husband had to be part of everything except for the reserve bid on it.
Right.
And he didn't uphold his court order.
Gotcha.
So the justice system, to me, there isn't any.
Well, I'd have to take a look at it, but I understand exactly what you're saying. It's very frustrating when it seems like, or when, in fact, somebody doesn't hold somebody's feet to the fire or make them follow an order.
Yeah. Well, this girl, she wanted $1.2 million from my husband, and it only appraised for $225,000. And she did everything she could in the last 10 years so that she could end up with the place.
Right. All right, Gwen. Hope that helps you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
540-0580. Tom, you're on WHP 580.
Hey, good afternoon.
What's going on?
Carl?
Yeah.
Hey, I just have to agree with you on that Megan's Law change now. I mean, these people did serve their time. They served their penance, so to speak, and then they're being forced now to come out and acknowledge again. You can go to that Megan's Law list any time, and most of the time I think people only go if they have children, but it is nice to know if your neighbors are involved.
Right.
But let's get to a point. If you go and have confession with your priest, he's going to say, do 5 Hail Marys, do so many, do your rosaries, whatever, and you're done, and you receive, supposedly, you're forgiven from God, not to mix the two, but you're not going to have the priest come out in the middle of the pew then after you're done with your thing. Say, oh, by the way, I think you should do 100 more because we had to think about this again.
Right.
So if the ultimate you can forgive somebody and move on, they should let some of these people that have already served their time, served judgment against them, move on with their lives.
Yeah, and I know there's
that albatross.
There's people out there listening who will be like, well, it doesn't matter. Well, you know what? Go cast your stones in your glass house. And I understand that some people will never do the terrible things that other people do. But the point is we figure out where justice lies, and if it was unjust to give them a 10-year registration in the first place, we shouldn't. There's my music. I got to go. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, have a great weekend.
Tim, if you hold on, I'll answer you off the air. Hey, guys, go to weekendappointment.com to contact me. Get me in the office. We've got 5 attorneys. We got offices in Lancaster, Carlisle, Chambersburg. You got a personal injury case, and you want to get a reasonable attorney's fee, come see us. See you next week.